This past week, a very special fossil went up for auction. And I mean very special. Not only was it one of the best preserved specimens of its kind, but it was also one of only 4 of its kind in the world. Following a 6-minute battle between 6 different bidders, the gavel finally came down on a winning bid of $30.5 million. Now, if you've got $30.5 million burning a hole in your pocket, then boy, did you have the opportunity to spend it. Because this past week, a Ceratosaurus fossil, one of only 4 known to exist, sold for a whopping $30.5 million at auction. The others are housed in the collections of the Utah Geological Survey, the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, and the Royal Ontario Museum. It has not been formally studied or described in a scientific journal, and prior to this week, it had never been offered for sale on the open market. Secondly, this is the only juvenile Ceratosaurus fossil known. Who acquired the specimen in 1998 when it was a few years old and on loan from the original finders. For example, you may remember that back in July 2024, Sotheby's also sold the most valuable fossil ever sold at auction, Apex the stegosaur, which fetched $44.6 million. He continued, at the top end of the market, it does seem to be about an increasing desire for distinction, adding that these dinosaur specimens also have a particular aesthetic. They are sculptural and awe-inspiring. Westgarth noted that fossils are no longer seen as simply curiosities or oddities, but rather as scientifically valuable objects. He said, "I don't really know what to say. These price tags are just mind-boggling." He said, "But for me, the bottom line is that when specimens like Ceratosaurus go for tens of millions of dollars, that is not a world where dinosaurs will be accessible for everyone. Will more Ceratosaurus fossils be found and sold? Well, potentially. But remember, fossil hunting is a long game. Unlike searching for something like gold, finding a fossil is incredibly difficult. It's estimated that 99% of all prehistoric creatures have yet to be discovered, but the chances of stumbling upon one are slim to none. Plus, it's not cheap to go exploring. So for most, it's just not worth the monetary investment. I feel the key is to try and preserve as much of the fossil record as possible in the public domain, so that everyone can enjoy these amazing creatures that once roamed our Earth." He said, "As far as I can tell, the market in fossils has always been symbiotic with institutional research. There's a constant exchange between private and academic interests. Or do you agree with Westgarth that there is a symbiotic relationship between the market and wider research interests? And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you can support us. The link to that is in the description. But as always, this is your host, and I will see you next time on Paleoworld. Let us know in the comments below." He continued, "Here the market for fossils acted as a catalyst for research in public institutions in the 19th century, inculcating increasing attention and public interest and acting as a catalyst for increased research activity on dinosaur fossils. Who has that kind of money to spend on a dinosaur?" Broussat added that while he is pleased that the buyer of the Ceratosaurus fossil has suggested that they will loan it to an institution, as is fitting for a specimen of this rarity and importance, at this point it is just a vague suggestion. The buyer is still anonymous. He added, "My fear is that this skeleton will disappear into the ether, into the mansion of an oligarch or a bank vault to accumulate value as just another investment in the portfolio of a hedge fund, and not see the light of day until it's auctioned again, or maybe never at all." He continued, "Bottom line, a world where dinosaur skeletons can fetch tens of millions of dollars within a few minutes at auctions is not a world where dinosaurs will long be accessible to educate and inspire everyone." Quote, "I am very glad this specimen will be going to a collection where people can see it. This specimen represents an important piece of history, both for understanding how dinosaurs evolved and for paleontology as a whole." The Museum of Ancient Life closed its doors in September 2024 after more than 2 decades of exhibiting fossils and artifacts from around the world. And lastly, it's incredibly well preserved for a specimen of this age. Hi, and welcome to Paleologic. Today, we are talking about this incredible Ceratosaurus that just sold at auction. So the specimen, which is the only known juvenile Ceratosaurus fossil of the 4, sold for multiples of its $4 million to $6 million estimate at Sotheby's, New York. Now, before we get into the specifics of this particular specimen, let's talk about what exactly a Ceratosaurus is. So Ceratosaurus nasicornis was a meat-eating theropod. And by the way, theropods include the likes of Velociraptor, Tyrannosaurus rex, and all of the other fan favorites. These stellar results underscore a deep and enduring fascination and respect for the natural world, from the farthest reaches of space to the ancient depths of the earth. What draws collectors is more than just a passion for science. It's a deep-seated curiosity about the forces that have shaped our planet and beyond. So Ceratosaurus was a meat-eating theropod that lived during the late Jurassic period in what is now North America, and as its species name suggests, it had a nasal horn. This was a bony extension of the nasal bone that protruded from the front of its skull, giving it an iconic look. But that wasn't all. It also sported long teeth and bony armor that ran down its back and tail. So this particular specimen stood 6 feet, 3 inches, just under 2 meters tall, and was approximately 10 feet, 8 inches, just over 3.25 meters long. It's important to note that this was a juvenile. So given that it hadn't finished growing, that means that adults were likely even bigger. According to Sotheby's, this fossil is made up of 139 bone elements, of which 57 make up a superb, virtually complete skull. It was found in 1996 at Bone Cabin Quarry in Wyoming, and it dates from the late Jurassic period, specifically the Morrison Formation, which dates to around 150 million years ago. In terms of why it's so special, well, the first reason is that it's one of only 4 known Ceratosaurus specimens. Following its discovery in 1996, it was displayed at the Museum of Ancient Life in Thanksgiving Point, Utah, from 2000 to 2024. Sotheby's said in a statement that the fossil is being sold by the founding family of the Museum of Ancient Life, now speaking to Live Science Sarah Hinckley, a paleontologist at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, who was not involved in the sale, said. In a statement published Wednesday, Cassandra Hatton, global head of science and natural history at Sotheby's, said, Mark Westgarth, a professor of history of the art market at the University of Leeds, England, told CNN that the sale is part of a recent resurgence of interest in fossils and natural history. Westgarth said that there's a new flourishing of private collections of dinosaurs and other fossils. However, Steve Brusat, a professor of paleontology and evolution at Scotland's University of Edinburgh, was pretty vocal about his feelings regarding this fossil, and others like it being sold at such high prices. However, in contrast to Brusat's argument that fossils like Ceratosaurus should remain accessible to all, Westgarth argues that there is a symbiotic relationship between the market and wider research interests. In his defense, Brusat says that while he agrees that private collectors can play a positive role, he feels that when the specimens become too expensive, it becomes harder for institutions to acquire them. Now, you may be wondering, could this new record-breaking sale of a Ceratosaurus kickstart a new trend of sorts? What do you think about fossils selling for tens of millions of dollars? Do you agree with Brusat that specimens like Ceratosaurus should remain accessible to all? Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to our supporters who make videos like this possible.